Hi Joanna. Alright, so here is your past life spread. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look and see where you are, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationships and feelings involved, another important day, the death, and lesson learned. And we'll get hints of time throughout, okay? So all I'm going to do is relay to you the images and impressions that are coming through, and your job is going to be to try to make connections wherever you can based on what we're going over here and your current life. And I'll try to help however I can too. All right? Okay, so let's start. So we are going to start here at this card, which is the South America card. And obviously there's a lot of places in South America, but really what pulled at me and what felt like what we were looking at is more like a journey to South America rather than someone who was born there. It feels like if not a lot of time is spent here, then a lot of time is spent thinking about it. There's something very appealing to this soul aspect we're looking at about South America, but not just South America. There is something that has to do with discovery, exploration, something about hearing about something and finding it, hearing about a lost treasure and finding it, hearing about a lost city and finding it. We're looking at a male life, okay? So what I want to say is this feels like there's something about, I'm trying to see where they're pulling me, but like the idea of something about like something hidden, like it would be Peru. Something like Peru, or if there's another P down there, it feels like it's a P place. I don't know if Paraguay is in South America. I'm not great with geography, but they're giving me like a P name kind of thing. It can also be the name of a forest there, or of a peoples, like a native peoples. There's something interesting about that, so you might want to go on Google and try to find something. And the time period I feel like we're looking at is not very long ago, but not completely modern either. We're looking at like something like, feels like no later than the 19th century, so it's no later than 1800s, and it could possibly be the end of the 1700s, but it feels more like we're going like, it feels like we're in the 1800s, and it feels like we're looking at this guy who wants to go off and explore. So, for example, little connections you could be making already could be, one, are you intrigued or have you ever been intrigued by South America? It could be Peru, but again, look up those P words as far as a forest or a peoples, because sometimes people are named after the region too. But look up that kind of thing. But have you been pulled to visit or I don't know, even like seeing photos? Like if you see a photo of South America, of a region of South America, and you are triggered, which is more than just thinking, oh, that's pretty. It's like, oh, that feels familiar. There's something that is stirred in you emotionally when you see a photo. And it could be a region, it could be a certain mountain, it could be an ancient site, it could be even a photo of the forest or a photo of people who are native to the land. If you're triggered at all by anything in South America, just keep that in mind. That can be a connection. Also, the idea that we're looking at a male energy here, it could be one of two things or three things, whatever. It's basically you're incarnated again with those masculine traits and tendencies, or you're incarnated having a very nice balance of female and masculine, feminine and masculine energies, or you've incarnated going completely feminine into like, you know, very female girly stuff because of the lack of girly stuff that we're looking at here. So that's what we call like direct versus kind of opposite connections. A direct connection would be that you would show tendencies like a tomboy, or you would have kind of not like they're masculine traits, but not that you're like manly, but just masculine, or what our society considers masculine, you know what I mean? So if you have those kinds of traits, or if you had growing up or whatever, that would be a direct connection. And then an opposite connection usually is made because the soul experiences something in a past life, so they come back to experience the opposite, which would be the more girly aspect kind of thing. But a lot of times when we're talking about male and feminine kind of thing, if we're seeing the opposite gender of somebody doing a reading, it could also be a nice balance of masculine energy, aspects of your personality or behavior, things like that. So keep that in mind. Another thing, something about the idea of discovery, exploration, it's kind of like, have you ever had a thing where you really take pleasure in the idea of a treasure hunt? Or, I mean, it could be so randomly simple as like, did you love finding Easter egg? Like, are you like, someone's like, ooh, Easter egg hunt, you know, because that's really kind of like an easy parallel we can make with this kind of thing. But it's also something like that movie National Treasure. Do you really like that movie? Like, does it get you going when you hear about treasure hunts, or like something that is missing, or something that is hidden or buried, Pirates of the Caribbean-ish kind of essence or vibe? If that kind of excites you, that would be a connection here, because that's the feeling that I'm getting from this person. Okay. What else? Okay, there's something also about the fact that you weren't born in South America, but we're getting the South America card because your mind is there. You might be someone who finds that you are always thinking way ahead of the game, like maybe even to the point where it's hard for you to be present a lot of the times because you're thinking of the future, whether it's your like a job or a relationship, whatever it is. You might be already like planning things that are way ahead, or thinking, oh, what's going to happen in 5 years, or, you know, like basically just displaced from the present moment and your mind in the future. And it could be in the past as well. Basically, it just means that you might have not issues, because that's like a heavy word, but like you might have, you know, a tendency to not stay present as much as you would like to. And if you find that your thoughts do kind of scatter away ahead of what, you know, what could be coming, what you might want to be doing, and, you know, way in the future, just remember, if that speaks to you, this would be coming up as a message for you to try to stay more in the present moment and try not to dwell so much in the past or the future. Because if you've heard this before, when you're in the future, you tend to worry, because you're like, you know, if you're thinking of being in the future, your consciousness, technically, when you're thinking of being in the future or future events, you're literally sending your consciousness to the future. But because you don't know what's really going to happen quite yet, you might worry. So this might mean that you could be someone who is a worrier in your life, and it might cause anxiety, and you might not like that. So if you do have anxiety or you do worry often, it's probably because you are in the future in your mind. You're sending your consciousness to the future, wondering about things, and because you don't know what's going to happen, it causes like a subconscious worry, anxiety kind of thing. That's why being present is so helpful, because it takes you out of that worry state, because there's nothing you can do about it except worry. Just like in the past, it causes anxiety too, because it's just you're reliving something that you cannot change. It happened, and so you're anxious and you're worried about, you know, things that you cannot have control over. And so it takes you out of a state of where you feel like you're in control of yourself. And so that can cause kind of like a disrupt or a disconnect as well. So that's why being present is very important. And if this connects with you in any way, this would be a message for you to try your best to stay present. How can you do that? Of course, you've probably heard meditate. Meditation's hard if you're not into the practice. Starting it up can be kind of hard. So like try 5 minutes a day of just breathing and quieting your thoughts and see where it goes. Or just find an activity that holds your focus in the present moment, if that makes sense. So let's go on to the next card here. So this card of what you did for the majority of your time, this is the leisure card. Here, let's see if there's the light. Look at that light. Ah, the leisure card. So the leisure card, a lot of times it indicates somebody who is basically born into more of like a wealthy family, and that's what it feels like here. It feels a little bit more than that. It feels not just born to a wealthy family, but I do feel like we're looking at something like an inheritance of some kind, almost like it feels almost like your parents maybe died, left you an inheritance, and you're with a family that's not your direct family, but it'd be like aunt and uncle, or yeah, it feels like an aunt and uncle, like you're being kind of not raised fully, because it feels like you did have your parents for a time and then something happened almost maybe like one of those things where it's like a sickness wiped out a bunch of people and you survived, so you went to live with like an aunt and uncle or a cousin or whatever, family took you in, and you were left an inheritance. So it's like you had a really nice, well upbringing, a wealthy upbringing. And the thing is there was something about not having the guidance of your parents that made it so your focus kind of latched on to having the inheritance and the money. And what you did, it was this discovery, this exploration kind of thing that pulled at you, that you started to pursue. It feels like what it was an escape. It feels like it was an escape from grief, or an escape from kind of being honest with your feelings, or working through some things and processing things. And I feel like this is also a time when, you know, going to a therapist or psychology wasn't an option. It just wasn't a thing back then. So I feel like we are looking at someone who kind of just spends a lot of his time focused on other things to, like, not make up for not having parents, but like to not have to deal with emotions. And it feels very much like a typical male kind of thing. And I hate to say that because there's a lot of men who are very in touch with their emotions, but for this purpose in this time period, it feels like a typical male kind of thing, where lots of money, free to do whatever, highly educated, in sophisticated society, kind of like, instead of, it's almost like there's a gambling aspect to him, but instead of spending his life like around the roulette table or gamble, whatever it is, he goes in pursuit of these like legendary things. And I also feel like there's something about connecting it, because it is a very like a childhood kind of fantastical idea to go in pursuit of a lost legendary city kind of thing, where he's kind of still living in his childhood or trying to extend it in a way. So however this connects with you, for example, it can connect with you having to do with your childhood, having to feel it's possible that in your childhood you chose a family where you might have experienced, like this might be coming up because you might have chosen a family where you experienced some sort of neglect on some level. Or some sort of abandonment issues. So if you have neglect or abandonment or trust issues when it comes to your family, it can connect back to this. On the other hand, you could have decided because of this. Again, there's that opposite connection where you came back, decided to choose a family that is very nurturing and won't abandon you, and it might be even where they are on top of you at all times, where they're very controlling and it's annoying, you know? So you see, you can make connections in different ways, but this also speaks to an aspect you might have of burying your emotions down deep and focusing on other things in order not to deal with issues that you might feel like you would take a lot to go through and process, because it can be scary, it could be fear-based, really, when you have to go through, like, you know something about you has to change, and you have to bring it up, and you have to kind of admit it to yourself, and that kind of thing. So if you feel like there is anything lingering in there where you're going through something right now, where you might be coming to an age where you feel like, okay, it's time to like move forward from this, whether it's still dwelling on a past relationship, or dwelling on past abuse, or dwelling on even like a past mistake you might have made where you still allow it to influence you emotionally. Now this would be coming up as it's the time to move past that. And how you do that is forgiveness. It's self-love and forgiveness. It's just every time it comes up, allow it to come up, acknowledge that the feeling is there, the memory is there, but try to view it in an observational kind of way, so that you're not attached to the emotion, but that you're separated from it and you're viewing it, and almost like you can see it passing on by you, and forgive it. Forgive that person who went through it, whether it was a mistake or relation, whatever it is. Just send loving thoughts or energy to it, and forgiving thoughts and energy to that aspect of yourself of the past, basically an aspect of your past self. And the more you do this, the less silly it's going to feel, and the more like you practice, it's going to feel realer and realer, until the time's going to come when those thoughts won't come up anymore, and that means you've processed it. So keep that in mind if that speaks to you. Also, this Life of Leisure card can also speak to you coming into this life having to work hard for things to achieve them. So again, the direct connection would be that you chose to come into this life with a family that can support you and everything's going smoothly and you're going through school just fine and you get your degree and you get the job and everything's just fine and, you know, moving along just like this person did. Or you could have chosen to come back in this life if you've noticed any hardships with finances, any hardships with schooling, or, you know, things just maybe have been more choppy than flowy in your life when it comes to those kind of things. That would make sense too, because you experienced, basically you got to do whatever you wanted here. So it would make sense that your soul would be like, okay, I want to come in and now experience a life that's a little more challenging, a little more rough, where I'm challenging myself and I need to get through this kind of thing. So just remember, if you find that you look back in your life and you're like, yeah, it has been kind of challenging, like emotionally, financially, whatever, just remember, the best thing to do is to remember that your soul chose that, because you've already experienced easy peasy lives. So your soul chose that. And when you remember that, then you feel more on board with your life's journey, even if it's challenging. When you're on board with the challenge, then it becomes kind of like fun, more of a journey where you can enjoy the experience, enjoy the journey, kind of when you know like the root reason why I'm going through this. Oh yeah, I already decided I wanted to on a soul level, you know, no one's doing this to me. I signed up for it. So keep that in mind as well, all right? So let's go to the first important day here. The first important day, this card is the so long farewell until we meet again card. Here, let's get that without the glare. There we go. And I can put it right here for you. So long farewell until we meet again card. And this card means that somebody is leaving. Either you or someone else is leaving. It could be for a time, it could be forever, but we're looking at a day when someone is leaving and it does feel like you. Here is the soul group card. This indicates the relationship we're looking at is someone who's in your soul group. What that means is that you see these people throughout your lifetimes. And if you don't see them in human form, then they are your guides, because they are always with you. They travel with you kind of like in a soul family pack, if you put it that way, you know? These people can be your friends or they can be your enemies. Either way, you're learning lessons from them. That's why they're part of your soul group. Because on a soul level, we're all like loving entities. So it's only when we become human that we allow, you know, the veil to go down and we forget on a soul level who we are, and we have a basically play to perform, and we all have roles. So they can be part of your soul group, and on a soul, you know, the soul level, you love them. But in this human body that we're in this play that we're in with the roles that we have, you might hate them, but that still means they're teaching you something and you're learning from them. The feelings involved is the betrayal card. Okay, so we're looking at a betrayal, and what it feels like is happening is that you are the one that is being thought of as the one betraying, because what I'm seeing here is you are taking off kind of for good and at a bad time. So it feels like the family that you were raised with that took you in, it does feel like it's a larger family, like there's a whole family there. It's a full family, and they treated you well. They treated you like their own son or brother, or, you know what I mean, family. And it feels like because of this, what happened with your parents and there's like a lack of empathy involved, you decide to go off on another adventure, and it feels like it's at a time when something is happening, like it's almost like someone's really sick, or someone just went through something really big and really heavy, or someone is getting old, or there's something with somebody in the family where it's time to corral around the family and be there and be present for them, and you just decide, I don't want to deal with this. I'm leaving. I have things to do. I have places to explore. But this is a deeper issue because it goes back to your abandonment by your own parents. So it's almost like you don't even realize how fearful you are to lose someone else that you care about and that you love, almost to the extent where you won't even admit to the level that you love them or care about them, because that is vulnerable. So in your current life, you might have a hard time being vulnerable with people that you love. You might put walls up sometimes with people. It might be in relationships or family or good friends, or it takes a while for people to kind of warm up to them, to get to be at a certain level with you. If you find that that's the case, if you find that you have trouble being vulnerable around people, this would be coming through as kind of a reminder that it's for a deeper reason, but it's from another time. So this fear of loss, like a fear of loss, it could be, it's in your soul memory, and you can make the choice to release it and move past it, you know? And it's not like overnight it's cured, you know, but it's the kind of thing where you take steps, like we were talking about before, with processing the emotions, letting them come up, work through them, move on, that kind of thing. So it can be scary, but it's worth it. And also, this person is going off, it's like they're going off to explore again. It's like so yeah, it's just like this thing about not wanting to face the loss of something. So if you've ever had that thought, like where something is happening in your life, maybe somebody is sick, maybe somebody is dying, whatever it is, and you felt kind of incompetent to be there and be present with them, it's the kind of thing where you have to forgive yourself and not blame yourself, because it's a soul memory stemming from this. On the other hand, you could have come back in this life where you are overly empathetic, like where you feel other people's emotions, where you feel other people's hardships, and you take it into your own body. If you've heard of an empath, it could be that you've come back as empathetic and an empath to make up for this kind of numbed out person, because they really numbed themselves out and pursued anything that would just take their mind off of the serious, heavy stuff, you know? So it could be that this life you are living in order to learn how to deal with the serious, heavy stuff, the emotions, feeling them out, processing them, that kind of thing. And it can come up in various ways. It can come up in, romantic relationships. It can come up in relationships where it's like you and your grandparent, and they're very old, so they're not going to be here very long. Or you and you make a very good friend, and they happen to have cancer, and like things like that, where you're placing yourself in the path of hardship emotionally, but you're doing it on a soul level in order to give yourself chances and opportunities to react differently than this person did, to do the right thing, basically. So, and it could be too that you're looking at the same people from this soul group, playing it out again. So if there's anything you can connect with here, keep doing that. Keep making connections where you can. It can be a simple thing as you need to, when you are feeling emotional or vulnerable, whatever, you need to get out, you need to take a drive, getting away. It could be too where betraying somebody, the act of betrayal to you could be a huge trigger. Whether like a romantic relationship, you might be someone that is like freaked out about someone cheating on you, even if they didn't, where it's just like on your mind because of the betrayal of it, like that kind of thing. If someone lies to you, it could be a trigger for you. So keep that in mind if it is, and know it comes from here, and it's time to allow that to like come up, process, release it, forgive. Next important day, keep making connections. Next important day, this is trauma. And the trauma card is with this relationship card, which is the karma card. And I want to say, if there's somebody in your life now, either coming up or already in your life, where you feel like there is a tie between you and them, and it may not feel very great, it might even feel a little off, or something where you feel like something isn't resolved between you two, but you don't know why. So if someone comes to mind, basically, when I say that, and someone comes to mind, someone where something feels kind of off or not resolved and you don't know why, it could be we're looking at this person right here, because this is the karmic card. Let me put this down here. This is the karmic card. So it indicates a karmic relationship. But what's amazing right now in this period of history, right now, there's this new earth shift. Look it up. Google New Earth if you haven't heard of it already. We're shifting into a new earth. This means new energies, and this also means that we're able to shed all of our karma now. It's a choice. You don't have to come back with karma. So it's great when these cards come up, because it's indicating that you can release it now. Now that if you feel that there is karma between you and somebody, or many somebodies, You can let it go and release it. You don't have to hang on to it. Because a lot of times we feel that karma in a weird way, like a tie to someone. Like we feel like we have to keep texting them, or we feel like we have to keep them in our lives in some way, or maybe they're family, and you know, it's like, oh, well, I have to be loyal to family. It's like, no, you can let go of these people. So the people that don't serve you, that have a weird energy, that make you feel discouraged, that make you feel guilty, that make you, you know, that kind of thing. That could be karmic. And if you feel it is, trust that intuition that it is. And you can let go of that toxic relationship. So keep that in mind. But what we're looking at here with this trauma card, the karmic card, and then the horror card. Oh, the horror card. And what happens is we're looking at a progression from this day. Now we're coming to this day. It's like this person, this whatever's happening here. It feels like somebody is honestly like on their deathbed and nobody is leaving except you. And it feels like that person dies. And it also feels like the death. The trauma card is not actually the death. It feels like the death itself brings about almost like a heart attack of someone else who dies. So it's like, let's say the matron of the family is on her deathbed and then she dies. And her husband, who loves her very much, dies of broken heart. So it's like a weird domino effect is the feeling I'm getting. So there's this domino effect where at least another person dies. So there's at least 2 deaths in the family and you're not there. And it's kind of, you get word about it. And that's where the horror card comes in, because it hits you. It's like the first time you're allowing yourself to open up, to feel the emotion of what's happening and what your actions cause, the repercussions of them. And it's overwhelming. Because also what's happening is you're also now feeling guilt. Guilt is awful. Guilt is, to me, it's the second worst to fear. Fear is the worst thing that holds you back. It's the worst kind of obstacle. To me, guilt is the second. And I feel like we're looking at someone who's now just bringing in all the guilt. It's almost like this person cannot allow true joy to come into their life. Even though they're off exploring, having a good time, blah, blah, blah. There's something about, you know, all this is being done as a way to mask the true feelings. And then finally, when he allows true feelings to hit him, it's all about guilt. So you might find in your current life that you're working through a lot of guilt. And how that happens is you might find that you're putting yourself in certain situations where guilt is attached to it. On a soul level, not like you're going around and being like, yes, I want to feel guilty. Not like that. But more like you find that you are in situations that lead to a moment or an occurrence where guilt is abundant and you take it on. So if you find that you take on guilt, and it could be also that you just, your soul chose to be born to a family that might be religious, where you might be the black sheep, and that's a lot of guilt too. Or you were born to a religious family where you actually went through the religion and you learned the religion, and a lot of religions are revolving around guilt, you know, whether it's Jewish or Catholicism, like there's a lot of guilt involved. So if you find that guilt is a theme in your life, just please know it comes from this life. And if that's the case, it's really time to release it big time. Because when you release that guilt, you are creating space for good things, good feelings, progress, growth, development, positivity, healthy relationships. Let go of the guilt. I know it's easier said than done, but this is coming up as a message for you. Any guilt you have, let it go. And also know what triggers guilt so that you can put the stopper on the trigger. So it could be that you're in a relationship where they're manipulative emotionally and they make you feel guilty and you might feel stuck. Time to get out of a toxic relationship. You know what I mean? Anything. Get away from the guilt. Anyone that makes you feel guilty is not good for you. Any experience that makes you feel guilty is not serving you. Get out of it, okay? Keep making connections where you can. Now, let's go to the death card. This is the fire card. So this is the burn baby burn card. A lot of times we get like burned at the stake kind of thing. But in this case, it doesn't feel like that. It feels honestly like when I laid these cards out, it felt like you spent a lot of time at sea. It felt like this is someone who is on boats, who knows boats and ships, and he's out and he's sailing away somewhere. He's constantly on the coast of some kind of land. And this feels like your ship sinks because of a fire. And I don't know if it was started by people who were against you or whatever, or if it was a mistaken fire, but it just feels like your ship is sinking. And that's also metaphorical, because you go down with the ship. So it's interesting that you're going down with the ship, in a sense, when you've spent your whole life trying to avoid making connections and being caught up in other people's emotions that would make it so that you would be going down with the ship. But in this case, you literally go down with the ship, but it is meant as a metaphoric kind of thing as well. So what does this mean? Any connections you could be making with this? Couple things. One, are you someone that is actually drawn to water, to the ocean, to the sea, to ships, to cruises? You know, are you someone that likes cruise? The idea of going out on a lake, on a boat, that kind of thing. You can be very drawn to it because this guy's life was spent there. On the other hand, you could be someone who absolutely does not want to go on the ocean, does not want to go near a boat, does not want to take a cruise. You might have a weird fear about it. And if you have any fear of water, or boats, it would definitely stem from this. Also, you could be someone who absolutely hates the idea of smoking, not your gig. You might not like being around smoke, or smokers, people who smoke. Doesn't mean you might, I mean, you could be someone that is scared of fire, but it doesn't mean like you won't light a candle, you know what I mean? If you are scared of fire, of, lighting a candle with an unreasonable fear of leaving it on when you leave the house and your fire and it catching, or forgetting to blow it out, whatever it is, that kind of weird unreasonable fear, it could come from this as well. But it would also be a message not to fear that anymore, because having gone through this once, you're not going to go through this kind of death again. It's done. But it would explain anything you would have about smoking, and about irrational fears of your house catching on fire while you're sleeping, or double checking the oven is off or the stove is off, that kind of thing. So keep that in mind, okay? Now, the lesson. This lesson is so funny because it's perfect for what we're looking at. Perfect for this past life. Love others. Love others. So this lesson, you were given so many opportunities in this life to make the right choice, to love others, to put yourself forward for others, to put yourself in the position of being there for other people. So many opportunities. They're hard and they're challenging and they're scary and they're sad, but they're opportunities for your soul to grow in the way of being there for others and showing support and love and compassion and empathy for others. And you couldn't do it here. You really couldn't do it. You didn't allow yourself to process the emotions, to get through your parents' death and the neglect and the abandonment. You didn't allow it to happen here. So you're living your life now to finish the lesson. You're here on earth now, and one of your big lessons here is learning to love others. It does not mean giving up happiness for others' happiness. It does not mean being selfless to the point of emptying your bucket of energy and self-love. You need to show self-love in order for your love for others to be genuine. So make sure you are giving yourself love and appreciation and time and all those things, but you're here to continue and finish this lesson of loving others. And that just simply means being emotionally available to people that you feel that is part of like a promise. Like if you have a best friend and they need you, you made a commitment to be their best friend, so be there for them. Or, basically it's like uphold the emotional commitments that you made to people that you love and care about, okay? And it also means to open up to others who are there to show you that commitment as well, because you can learn from them as well. Everybody is our teacher, so you can learn great methods of loving other people simply by allowing other people to love you. It's kind of an amazing thing. So keep connecting to this in however you can, okay? And I feel like it's actually a very lovely thing, and it also has a feeling of being that you're on track. Like you're right on track with this. That's what it feels like, and it feels very nice. So there's your lesson. There is your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to make some connections, and thanks for letting me read you.